They called it the wedding of the century. 500 guests crowded into the Plaza Hotel. $1 million wedding dress, chandeliers glittering like constellations. Outside, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing toward one name, Jonathan Pierce, the young Wall Street CEO who stood at the very summit of power. He was about to marry Victoria Sterling, heiress of an old money dynasty. People whispered this wasn't just a marriage, it was the union of two empires. Jonathan walked the red carpet with practiced ease, his face unreadable. He looked like the embodiment of success. Young, handsome, powerful, his company worth billions. But deep inside, he didn't understand why the most important moment of his life felt so hollow. Victoria stepped into the aisle in her dazzling white gown, a proud smile on her lips. The crowd applauded. The hall glowed with perfection. Jonathan took her hand, stood before the priest. Everything was flawless, till a child's voice pierced the silence. "Daddy, why are you marrying someone else?" The ballroom erupted. A little boy in a tiny suit ran down the aisle and threw his arms around the groom's legs. Tousled brown hair, grey eyes, Jonathan's own eyes, reflected back at him. Cameras exploded, whispers swelled. Victoria froze. The priest faltered. Jonathan stood stunned, staring into the face of a boy who could only be his son. A woman rushed forward from the back row, panic in her voice. "Ethan, no." She pulled at the boy, but it was too late. The secret had been ripped open. Amelia Carter, the woman Jonathan hadn't seen in 7 years. And now she stood before him with a child who was undeniably his. Victoria's face twisted. "Jonathan, who is this child?" Jonathan opened his mouth, but no words came. His mind repeated a single truth. He had a son he never knew existed. The wedding collapsed into chaos. Guests gasped. Reporters swarmed. Victoria ripped the ring from her finger and flung it to the floor. "You betrayed me. You betrayed my family. This marriage is over." She stormed out under 100 disbelieving eyes. Jonathan chased Amelia into the hallway, catching her hand. "Amelia, why didn't you ever tell me?" Her eyes brimmed with tears, but burned with steel. "Do you think I didn't try? I called, I wrote. But your family, your lawyers, they blocked me. To them, I was nothing but dirt. I carried your child alone. I disappeared to protect him." Jonathan staggered. 7 years. I lost 7 years. Amelia clutched Ethan's hand tighter. "You made your choice, Jonathan. You chose ambition. You chose power. I couldn't let my son grow up in a world where he was just a stain on your resume." Memories flooded back like a storm. Their passionate love, the nights they'd shared, the days she'd vanished. He had convinced himself she left because she couldn't bear his world. He had buried the pain in his work. But now, staring at this boy with his own eyes, he finally understood what he had thrown away. By that night, the scandal had engulfed the city. Headlines screamed, "The wedding of the century." Photos of Jonathan, frozen before the child, ran on every screen. Victoria appeared on television, weeping bitterly. "He not only betrayed me, he betrayed this entire city. Jonathan Pierce is unfit to be a husband, unfit to be a father." Her words cut deep. Pierce Group's stock plunged. Hundreds of millions vanished overnight. Amelia sat in her small Brooklyn apartment, holding Ethan close. Watching Victoria cry on TV, she sighed. She had never wanted this storm. But Ethan looked up at her, eyes steady. "Mum, I want to see Dad." Her heart twisted. She had no answer. Meanwhile, Jonathan's phone buzzed in his glass office on the 50th floor. His mother's voice hissed cold through the line. "You've disgraced the Pierce name. Deny the boy, or we cut you off. No shares. No inheritance. Nothing." Jonathan lifted his head, voice low and firm. "If losing everything means keeping Amelia and my son, then I'll take the loss." For the first time, he chose something that had nothing to do with money or power. But he knew the road ahead would be merciless. Victoria struck back fast. She hired investigators to dig into Amelia's past, feeding rumors that Amelia seduced Jonathan for money, that the child wasn't his. The press devoured the scandal. Amelia became a target. One afternoon, when Amelia took Ethan to school, paparazzi cornered them. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, "Is Jonathan really the father? Are you a gold digger? Did you ruin the wedding on purpose?" Ethan clung to her, terrified. Amelia trembled as she shielded him. When Jonathan heard, fury consumed him. He drove straight to the school, lifted his son into his arms, and faced the reporters head-on. "He is my son. Anyone who touches him will answer to me." That image streamed live across New York. The ruthless CEO transformed into a father ready to fight the world. But the Pierce family seethed. In a closed meeting, relatives called for his dismissal. "You've chosen her over us. You've chosen a scandal over legacy." Jonathan stood tall. "Amelia and Ethan are my family. The rest I don't need." His grandfather slammed the table. "The Pierce name will never belong to a traitor." Jonathan turned his back on them. For the first time, he felt free. The ballroom, once radiant, dissolved into chaos. The glittering chandeliers now hung over a battlefield of gasps, whispers, and flashing cameras. Guests craned their necks, murmurs swelling into waves, while others raised phones to livestream the debacle to millions. The wedding that was supposed to crown Jonathan's career had turned into a spectacle of scandal. Victoria ripped her hand away from Jonathan's grasp. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with outrage. Her voice cracked sharp through the room. "You deceived me. You dragged a child into our wedding, Jonathan Pierce. You've humiliated me in front of everyone." Gasps swept the crowd. She tore the ring off her finger and hurled it onto the marble floor. The small clink echoed through the cavernous space like a thunderclap. Then she spun on her heel and stormed down the aisle, the train of her gown hissing against the stone. Guests erupted in whispers, some gasping, some already snapping photos of the bride's furious retreat. But one truth was undeniable. The wedding was over. Jonathan, stunned but desperate, dropped to one knee before the little boy who still clung to him. His voice trembled. "What's your name?" The boy looked up at him, voice innocent, unwavering. "Ethan." The name struck Jonathan like a blow. He felt his breath hitch, his chest cave in. Ethan. Amelia yanked her son protectively close. "That's enough. We're leaving." But Jonathan couldn't let her go, not again. "Amelia." His voice thundered through the ballroom, raw, breaking. Dozens of eyes turned toward them. Years of silence shattered in that single cry. "Don't walk away," he begged, voice hoarse. "Not this time. You owe me an explanation." Amelia turned back. Her face was pale, her eyes aflame with pain and fury. Her voice shook, yet each word landed like a blade. An explanation. "Jonathan, I tried. I called you. I sent letters. But your family, Your lawyers, they shut every door. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted to carry your child alone, to rent a cheap apartment, to work nights while my belly grew heavier every day? Do you think I wanted to stay up through endless nights, rocking a crying baby with no one by my side? Her voice broke, but she pressed on, trembling with rage. You weren't there. You didn't care. To them I was a stain, and you let them erase me. Jonathan staggered back, his breath ragged. I didn't know, he stammered. I swear, Amelia, I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. Her words cut deep. You made your choice, Jonathan. You chose your career. You chose the Pierces. You didn't choose me. Ethan tugged on Amelia's sleeve, his young voice breaking the silence. Mum, can we go now? Amelia nodded, gripping his hand. But Jonathan surged forward, blocking her path, desperation clawing at his throat. I can't let you leave again. Not again. That boy is mine, Amelia. I knew the moment I looked into his eyes. He's mine, and you can't deny it. Amelia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Her voice wavered but remained firm. Yes, he's your son. But the question isn't whether he belongs to you. The question is, do you deserve to be his father? The silence that followed was suffocating. Guests, once buzzing, now slipped quietly from their seats, filing out of the ballroom, leaving only the three of them in the ruins of the ceremony. Jonathan's throat ached with words unsaid. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, to plead, to beg, to rage, but he could only stand frozen, watching the woman he once loved, the boy who was his blood, walk away through the grand doors, and for the first time in his life, Jonathan Pierce, the billionaire CEO, the man with the world at his feet, felt powerless. All the wealth, all the power, all the accolades meant nothing. He had lost 7 years he could never reclaim that night. Every television screen in New York replayed the disaster in relentless loops. Jonathan kneeling before the boy, Victoria storming out, the ring clattering to the floor. Anchors spoke with barely contained glee, headlines screaming, "The wedding of the century in ruins. Who is the child? A secret heir." Victoria appeared on primetime interviews, tears glistening on her perfect cheeks. He didn't just betray me. He betrayed my family. He betrayed this city. Jonathan Pierce is unfit to be a husband, unfit to be a father. Her words spread like poison, echoing through Wall Street. By morning, Pierce Capital's stock plummeted, hundreds of millions wiped out in hours. Jonathan sat in his penthouse on the 50th floor, staring blankly at the cascade of headlines. On the screens, one image replayed over and over: Ethan's face, turned up toward him, grey eyes wide, innocent. Accusing. His phone vibrated incessantly. Board members, investors, lawyers, his own mother. But Jonathan ignored them all. He knew exactly what they would demand. Deny, deny, deny. Deny Amelia. Deny the boy. Deny the truth. But for the first time in his life, Jonathan didn't want to follow orders. Jonathan did not sleep that night. His penthouse, usually gleaming with light and steel, lay in darkness, save for the glow of the city spilling in through the towering windows. He sat slumped in an armchair, nursing one glass of scotch after another, though none of it dulled the ache gnawing at his chest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the boy. Ethan. The name echoed like a drumbeat. Jonathan had never thought of himself as a man who wanted children. He had always said to Amelia, "Not yet." I'm not ready. I have work, projects, deals. Later, someday. But now, knowing he already had a child, a boy 6 years old, his chest tightened with grief. He had missed it all. The sleepless nights, the first steps, the first words, every scraped knee, every fever, every bedtime story. He had missed the entire beginning of his son's life. No boardroom defeat, no Wall Street loss had ever cut him so deep. This was worse than failure. This was betrayal not of others, but of his own blood by dawn. He made up his mind. He drove himself, refusing his driver, down into Brooklyn. The limousine gleamed absurdly against the worn brick buildings and corner bodegas, but he didn't care. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, as though the act of driving might hold him together. He remembered Amelia's old address, a cramped apartment she once joked about. Not as glamorous as your penthouse, she used to tease, but warmer. He hadn't been there in years, hadn't thought of it in so long. But his gut told him she was still nearby, and he was right. As he pulled up, the old wooden door opened. Amelia stepped out, coat drawn tight, hand clasping Ethan's. Her hair was pulled back, her face bare of makeup, her steps hurried, protective. Ethan chatted beside her, unaware of the man standing by the car. Jonathan's heart lurched. Amelia, he called. She froze. Her head whipped up, eyes wide, stunned. For a fleeting second, something soft flickered there. Then the walls slammed down. Her expression hardened into steel. You followed us, she snapped. Jonathan shook his head, voice low, ragged. I had to see you. I had to see him. Ethan looked up, his grey eyes locking with Jonathan's for the second time. It was like looking into a mirror. Jonathan's breath caught. His chest squeezed painfully. You have no right, Amelia hissed. Where were you for the last 7 years? Where were you when I worked double shifts to pay rent? When I sat in ER waiting rooms alone, praying he would be okay? When he cried through the night and I had no one to help? Where the hell were you, Jonathan? Her words struck like blows, each one harder than the last. Jonathan staggered under the weight of them. His mouth opened, but only a whisper came out. I didn't know. I swear, Amelia, I didn't know. Her laugh was bitter, sharp. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You let your family erase me. You let them close every door. You didn't fight. You let them decide for you, and I paid the price. Jonathan closed his eyes. She was right. Every word was a knife of truth. He remembered that night he came home from Tokyo, the apartment empty, her scarf still draped across the chair. He had told himself she'd left because she was done with him. He had convinced himself she didn't want his world. But the truth was worse. He had let them drive her out because he hadn't fought hard enough. His chest ached as he forced out the words. I was weak, a coward. I see that now. But please don't take him from me. Don't deny me the chance to be his father. He's my son. I can't lose him. Ethan, silent until now, tugged at Amelia's hand. His voice was small, trembling. Mum, is he really my dad? Both adults froze. Amelia's eyes filled with tears as she crouched to his level, brushing his hair back. Her voice broke as she answered, Yes, Ethan, he's your father. But Jonathan knelt down, desperate eyes locked on his son. His hands shook. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Ethan, for not being there. For everything I missed. But I swear to you I will make it right. I will never miss another day if you'll let me." The boy tilted his head, studying him. "Do you like soccer?" Jonathan blinked, startled. "Soccer? I don't know much about it. But if you like it, I'll learn." Ethan's lips quirked. "I play at school, but I don't have a dad to come with me. The other kids do." Jonathan's throat closed. Tears stung his eyes. He reached out, placing a hand on his son's small shoulder. "You do now. You have me. I'll be there." Ethan's face lit up with a shy smile that undid Jonathan completely. From a distance, Amelia stood frozen, her arms wrapped around herself. The sight twisted something inside her. She had steeled her heart for years, built walls to protect herself and her boy. But seeing Ethan smile like that, seeing him look at Jonathan with hope instead of emptiness, broke something in her. Yet she knew the world they were stepping into. Jonathan was still Jonathan Pierce, CEO of billions, heir to a dynasty that had already tried to destroy her once, and the Pierces would never accept them. The wind off the East River swept through the Brooklyn streets, cool and sharp, tugging at Jonathan's coat. He sat there, still on the worn bench, Ethan's laughter ringing faintly in his ears. But his mind drifted, pulled backward, back into years he had buried beneath ambition and denial. The memories came alive, vivid as if no time had passed. He remembered the first time he saw Amelia. He had been a graduate student, already carrying the weight of the Pierce name on his shoulders, trying to prove himself in finance while interning at a firm downtown. One evening, he ducked into a small cafe near Columbia University, craving caffeine after hours of numbers. And there she was. Her hair was tied in a loose ponytail, her hands moving quickly as she worked behind the counter, juggling orders with effortless grace. Her eyes, though tired, gleamed with life. And then she smiled at a customer, not at him, and Jonathan's world tilted. He had seen beauty before. Manhattan was full of it. But there was something different about her. Something unpolished, genuine, alive. He had ordered clumsily, trying to mask the sudden hammering of his heart. She had looked at him with faint irritation when she heard his last name, Pierce. She repeated, skeptical, as in those Pierces. Jonathan had smirked, embarrassed. Unfortunately, yes. She had raised an eyebrow. "So what are you doing here?" Slumming for authenticity. He had been taken aback and intrigued. Most women in his world leaned closer when they heard his name. Amelia leaned away. It had taken him weeks of persistence, showing up every night after her shift, carrying books she mentioned in passing, offering her coffee instead of ordering it, just to get her to lower her guard. And when she finally did, it was like the city itself lit up. They had loved fiercely, recklessly. They had walked the streets at midnight, eating greasy pizza instead of steak dinners, sitting on stoops talking about dreams instead of balance sheets. She teased him about his suits. He teased her about her endless cups of coffee. For the first time, Jonathan felt free, not as a Pierce, not as a future CEO, but as a man. But happiness in his world never lasted long. His family had discovered her. Eleanor Pierce, his mother, had summoned Amelia to a dinner under the guise of civility. The table had been long and gleaming, the silver polished to perfection, the air colder than stone. Eleanor had not wasted time. "Amelia," she had said, her voice velvet over steel, "my son is the sole heir to Pierce Capital. His future is bound to billions, to thousands of employees, to a legacy stretching back a century. Tell me, what role do you imagine yourself playing in that world? Amelia, so brave, had sat straighter. I don't want his money. I don't want his legacy. I love Jonathan. That's all. Eleanor's lips had curved, not in kindness, but in disdain. Love doesn't balance ledgers. Love doesn't win board votes. If you truly love him, you'll let him go. For his sake. For the sake of what he's meant to become. Jonathan hadn't known the full conversation until later. Amelia had left that dinner shaken, her hands trembling when he tried to hold them. She hadn't told him everything, Eleanor said. She had only whispered, "They'll never accept me. Your world will never accept me." Jonathan had sworn he'd fight. And he had meant it. But then Tokyo had come. A deal that could elevate him to the youngest CEO in Wall Street history. His family had pressed the ultimatum. The company or the girl. Choose. Jonathan had tried to keep both. He had convinced himself he could. He boarded the plane for Tokyo, promising Amelia that nothing would change. That he would return and they would plan their future. But when he came back, her apartment was empty. The scarf she'd left on the chair was the only trace of her. He had searched, called, begged his family for answers. They had shrugged, cold, silent. And in the end, Jonathan had let it go. He told himself she had left because she was tired of waiting, tired of fighting. He told himself she had chosen to walk away, and so he buried himself in work. He let ambition consume him. He clawed his way to the top, wearing his success like armor against the hollow ache in his chest. But now, standing in Brooklyn, face to face with Amelia and the boy she had borne alone, the truth cut sharper than any blade. She hadn't left because she stopped loving him. She had been forced out. And while he had chased billions, she had carried his child, fought battles alone, and built a life without him. Jonathan whispered into the cold air, more to himself than to anyone else. I failed you, Amelia. I failed us. Amelia turned at the sound, her eyes catching the light. They shimmered, not with love, but with hurt that had never healed. And Jonathan knew, in that instant, that the wound he had inflicted was deeper than he had ever allowed himself to believe. And the worst part was, she was right. The following afternoon, Jonathan climbed the marble steps of the Pierce estate in the Upper East. Side, the mansion loomed like a fortress of wealth and power, its stone walls cold, its towering columns casting long shadows. Inside, the air was heavy with judgment. Every member of the family had gathered in the great hall, stiff-backed uncles, jewel-draped aunts, cousins with the same hard Pierce eyes, and at the center sat Eleanor Pierce, matriarch of the dynasty. Her silver hair was perfectly coiled, her dark dress immaculate, her gaze sharper than steel. On the polished oak table before her lay a scatter of newspapers. Each headline screamed the same thing. The son he never claimed, Pierce wedding in RU, and a sand on every cover. The same photo. Jonathan, frozen at the altar, staring at a child who could only be his dot. Eleanor lifted her glass of water, sipped once, then set it down with a click. Her voice was cold, every word precise as a blade. What have you done, Jonathan? You turned the most important day of your life into a circus. The Sterlings have pulled out. The merger is dead. Our stock is bleeding. The Pierce name humiliated, and all of it is because of you. Jonathan stood tall, though his insides roiled. His voice was even steady. I didn't know. I swear, I had no idea. But now I do. And the boy is mine. I won't deny him. The room erupted. A cousin sneered. If you acknowledge that child, you'll destroy us. Investors don't follow weak men who can't control their private lives. An uncle slammed his palm against the table. This is betrayal. You've put your own lust above the future of our dynasty. Eleanor raised a hand, silencing the uproar. Her gaze never left Jonathan. Jonathan, I will ask you only once. Do you choose the Pierces our name, our empire, that woman and her bastard child? Jonathan's fists clenched at his sides. Images flashed before him. Ethan's small face tilting up to ask, is he really my dad? Amelia's trembling voice asking, are you worthy of being his father? The choice crystallized in his chest. He lifted his chin, voice clear. I choose my family. Amelia, Ethan. Gasps ripped through the room. Chairs scraped against marble. Rage erupted in every direction. You fool. An uncle shouted, you would throw away $1 billion empire for some waitress. Jonathan's eyes burned. Don't you dare. Don't you dare speak of her like that. She was driven out by this family. Don't act like none of you know. For the first time, Eleanor faltered. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her silence said more than any denial. You will lose everything, she said at last, her tone low, dangerous. Your seat as CEO, your shares, your inheritance, everything. Jonathan took a breath, then answered, firm as stone. If that's the price of being a father, then I'll pay it. Silence. The words dropped like hammers. Jonathan turned, shoulders straight, and walked out of the hall. Behind him, the dynasty roared like a beast betrayed. But for the first time in his life, Jonathan felt strangely light. In Brooklyn. Amelia faced a different storm. Reporters had tracked her down. Paparazzi clustered outside her apartment building, their lenses glinting like weapons. They shouted her name, pounding on her door, shoving microphones in her face when she dared to step outside. One morning, when she tried to walk Ethan to school, the mob swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions pelted her like stones. Is Jonathan really the father? Are you after his money? Did you plan this to ruin the wedding? Ethan clutched her hand, eyes wide with fear. Amelia bent over him, shielding his small body with her own, tears spilling. Please, stop. You're scaring my son. But the cameras only clicked faster by evening. The footage was everywhere. A terrified boy pressed to his mother's side. Amelia's face wet with tears as she begged for mercy. The internet divided. Some mocked her as a gold digger. Others wept for her, the single mother hounded by wolves. That night, after finally pulling Ethan into safety and putting him to bed, Amelia sat alone by the window. The city lights flickered, cold and distant. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling with exhaustion. She thought of Jonathan. She remembered the man who had once brought her coffee after long shifts, who had kissed her under the street lamps of Manhattan. She remembered the boy who had become a billionaire, the man who had chosen ambition over love, and she whispered into the night, her voice barely audible, can he change? After all these years, can he truly be a father? Can he truly be mine again? She had no answer, but deep down, Amelia knew one truth. The storm had only just begun. After the chaotic wedding and the storm of public judgment, Amelia thought things might calm down, but the world had no intention of letting her breathe. Jonathan had promised he would protect her and Ethan, But the price of his choice was beginning to reveal itself. The days that followed were filled with whispers, accusations, and the constant shadow of the press. Tabloids splashed her face on their covers, twisting her past into ugly headlines. The waitress who trapped a billionaire, gold digger mother, mystery child. Every time Amelia tried to step out, she felt the eyes of strangers pinning her down like knives. One afternoon, she picked Ethan up from school only to find him quiet, unusually so. On the way home, the little boy finally spoke. "Mum, some kids said I don't have a dad. They said I'm just unwanted." Amelia's chest tightened as though her ribs were breaking. She pulled Ethan close and kissed the crown of his head. "Don't you ever believe that, sweetheart. You are wanted more than anything in this world. Your father loves you, even if people can't see it yet." But when Ethan finally fell asleep that night, Amelia sat in the dark, hands pressed to her temples. She didn't know how long she could endure being the target of every cruel rumor. Jonathan, however, refused to let it continue. He stormed into the boardroom of Pierce Capital, slamming a stack of tabloids onto the mahogany table. Who leaked this? Who exposed her medical history, her past? Who is feeding this to the press? An older director shrugged, feigning ignorance. "Jonathan, that's just the media. We don't control them. Don't lie to me," Jonathan snapped. His voice cut through the room like a blade. "Someone in this room is working with Victoria. You want me out? Fine. But you don't get to destroy Amelia to do it." Silence followed. Eyes averted. Finally, the chairman of the board, Jonathan's own uncle, spoke with slow, measured disdain. "You've gone too far. If you won't disavow the boy, if you won't distance yourself from this scandal, then we will vote to remove you as CEO." Jonathan's jaw tightened, but his eyes did not waver. "Take the company. Take the money, the power, all of it. But you will not take my son." He turned and left, leaving behind a stunned silence. That night, Amelia received an unexpected call from an unfamiliar number. She almost didn't pick up, but something compelled her. "Ms. Carter," the voice said. It was Daniel, the young journalist she had once met in passing. "I know you don't trust the press, but I'm not like them. I have evidence documents that prove Victoria Sterling paid to leak those medical files. If you let me, I can publish the truth." Amelia's hand trembled. "Why would you risk your career for me?" Daniel let out a short laugh. "Because sometimes the truth is more important than a paycheck. And I'm tired of watching the rich twist the narrative while everyone else suffers." When the call ended, Amelia sat frozen, the phone still warm in her hand. For the first time in a long time, she realized she and Jonathan weren't entirely alone. A few days later, Kelly came over. Amelia's oldest friend wrapped her in a fierce hug. "I read everything. Don't you dare believe those lies. And don't shut him out, Amelia. If Jonathan really is fighting this time, let him prove it. But if he fails, if he hurts you again, then walk away for good. Either way, you won't face this alone." Amelia broke down in tears against her friend's shoulder, overwhelmed by both fear and gratitude. Jonathan, meanwhile, was done playing defense. He hired a team of lawyers to trace the leaks, prepared lawsuits against half a dozen tabloids, and began building his counterattack. But he knew legal victories alone wouldn't be enough. The court of public opinion was harsher, and Amelia was already drowning in it. So he did the unthinkable. He called a press conference, standing before a sea of flashing cameras. Jonathan straightened his tie and looked directly into the lenses. 7 years ago, he began, his voice strong but thick with emotion. I made the greatest mistake of my life. I let Amelia Carter walk away. She never once sought my wealth or power. She only ever loved me, and Ethan, our son, is proof of that love. I will protect them with every ounce of my name and my reputation. The room erupted into chaos. Some reporters mocked him, some applauded, and others whispered that he had lost his mind. But for the first time, the tide of public opinion shifted. It wasn't entirely in his favor, but the narrative was no longer one dash-sided. Amelia watched the broadcast from her apartment, tears streaming down her face. But she couldn't tell if they were tears of hope or fear. Meanwhile, in her silk-draped penthouse, Victoria Sterling sat with a glass of wine, her painted lips curled into a smirk. "Should we counterattack now?" her assistant asked. "Not yet," Victoria purred. "Let him think he's winning. At the charity gala next week, I'll finish them both off in front of everyone." Her eyes glittered with malice. "Amelia Carter will wish she never stepped into my world." Asterisk, the night of the charity gala arrived, and Manhattan glittered like a jewel box. The Waldorf Astoria's grand ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, its marble floors reflecting the gowns and tuxedos of New York's elite. More than 300 guests attended, bankers, politicians, celebrities eager to see and be seen. To the public, the event was for children's futures. But everyone whispered the truth. This was Victoria Sterling's stage. Her chance to reclaim her shattered dignity after the scandal at the wedding. Amelia had no desire to attend. She would have preferred to stay at home, holding Ethan close, pretending the world outside didn't exist. But Jonathan insisted, "If we don't face them, they'll keep trampling you and Ethan forever," he said, his voice earnest, almost pleading. "I'll be right beside you. I won't let anything happen." Reluctantly, Amelia agreed. She wore a deep sapphire gown, no diamonds, no jewels, yet her simple beauty drew every eye as she stepped into the ballroom with Jonathan. Immediately, whispers spread like wildfire. "That's her, the waitress who trapped him. She doesn't look like a gold digger, but the boy is the problem." Amelia lowered her head, fingers gripping Jonathan's hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. He squeezed back gently. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." When the evening reached its peak, Victoria swept onto the stage. She was dazzling in a crimson gown, makeup flawless, her presence commanding. The spotlight cast her as a queen about to pronounce judgment. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began sweetly, though her voice carried poison, "tonight we gather for the children. But there are children born from lies, children who tarnish the honor of great families." The room stirred. All eyes turned toward Amelia. Victoria held up a folder. "Here are documents proving Amelia Carter deceived Jonathan Pierce. The child she claims is his may not be his at all." Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Cameras flashed. Amelia's face drained of color, her hands trembling. Jonathan shot to his feet, his chair clattering loudly against the floor. "Enough, Victoria." The room fell silent. Jonathan strode onto the stage, ripped the folder from her hands, and tossed it to the floor. He turned to the crowd, his voice booming. "You can believe lies if you want, but I know the truth. Ethan is my son. Amelia is the woman I love, and no one has the right to insult them." Victoria laughed sharply. "And we're supposed to believe you? You betrayed me, betrayed both our families. Now you want to make a waitress into Mrs. Pierce. It's pathetic." Jonathan's eyes blazed. "The only pathetic thing is that I once thought family honor mattered more than real love. That mistake cost me 7 years with my son. I won't make it again." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some nodded approvingly, others shook their heads. But none could ignore the fire in Jonathan's voice. From the audience, Amelia watched through tears. For the first time, she saw Jonathan not as the cold CEO who had once abandoned her, but as a man standing, fighting for her and their child. Victoria's face twisted in rage. "You'll regret this, Jonathan. You'll lose everything." Jonathan stepped down from the stage, taking Amelia's hand. His voice was steady, resolute. "Maybe, but I won't lose her. And I won't lose our son." That night, the internet exploded with clips of Jonathan's defense. Hashtags surged. #stand with Amelia. Comment sections filled with debates, some praising Jonathan's courage, others mocking him as a fool blinded by love. For the first time, though, the tide of opinion was split in the small Brooklyn apartment. Amelia scrolled through the comments, tears sliding down her cheeks. For the first time in years, she saw words of support instead of scorn. And for the first time, she felt a fragile spark of hope. But deep inside, she knew Victoria was not finished. At that same moment, in her penthouse draped in silk and marble, Victoria sat with her assistant, fury burning beneath her flawless mask. "Should we strike back right away?" the assistant asked nervously. Victoria's lips curved into a deadly smile. "Not yet. Let him think he's won. At the next event, I'll destroy them both before the whole world." She raised her glass, crimson wine gleaming under the chandelier. Her eyes shone with venom. "Amelia Carter will wish she never crossed my path." The very next day, headlines exploded across every newsstand. Photos of Amelia's medical records had been leaked, splashed across glossy covers with cruel captions. "Waitress hides her past to trap. Billionaire CEO. The Carter scandal lies behind the love story." Amelia's hands shook as she scrolled through the articles. Her name, her past, her most vulnerable secrets lay bare for the world to mock. She pulled the curtains shut, turned off her phone, tried to shield Ethan from the storm. But children were never truly sheltered. At school, a classmate whispered cruel words. "They say, your dad isn't really your dad. They say your mum tricked him." Ethan's face turned red. He shouted back through tears, but the damage was done. That afternoon he stormed into their apartment, eyes brimming. "Mum, is it true? Is Dad not really my dad?" Amelia gathered him into her arms, tears choking her voice. "No, baby. Don't listen to them. Your father is your father. You are his blood, his son, his pride." Ethan clung to her tightly, but when he finally fell asleep, Amelia sat in the dark, trembling. She didn't know how much more she could endure. Jonathan, meanwhile, was furious. He stormed into the boardroom, slamming the stack of newspapers down so hard the crystal glasses rattled. Who did this? Who leaked her medical history? Who fed the vultures? The older directors exchanged cold looks. One shrugged casually. "It's the media, Jonathan. We can't control it." Jonathan's fist hit the table. "Don't insult me. Someone here is working with Victoria. You want me out? Fine, but dragging Amelia through the mud is cowardice." The room bristled with silence until his uncle, the chairman, finally spoke. "Jonathan, you've lost your grip. If you won't distance yourself from the boy, we'll remove you as CEO." Jonathan stood tall, eyes blazing. "Take the company, take the boardroom, the wealth, the power, but I will never deny my son." He walked out, leaving the board stunned that evening. Amelia received a call from Daniel, the journalist. "I know you hate the press," Daniel said, voice steady, "but I have proof this came from Victoria. I have the money trail, the names. Let me publish it." Amelia hesitated. "If you do this, she'll ruin you too." Daniel gave a short, bitter laugh. "Maybe, but I'd rather be ruined for telling the truth than rich for spreading lies." Amelia's chest tightened. For the first time, someone besides Jonathan stood openly on her side. Kelly, too, came by. She hugged Amelia fiercely. "Don't let them break you. If Jonathan really means what he says, let him prove it. But if he falters again, walk away and don't look back. You've got me, no matter what." Amelia wept into her friend's shoulder, grateful for the reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. Jonathan prepared his counterattack. He hired lawyers, filed suits against tabloids, but he knew paperwork wasn't enough. The public needed to see him fight with his whole heart, and so he held a press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. 7 years ago, Jonathan declared, voice echoing through the packed room, "I made the worst mistake of my life, letting Amelia Carter go. She never wanted my fortune. She only ever wanted me. And Ethan, our sonny's proof of that. I will defend them with every breath." The crowd erupted, half disbelief, half admiration. For the first time, the tide of opinion shifted. Amelia sat on the couch at home, watching his speech on television. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her heart torn between fear and a fragile new hope. Meanwhile, in her luxurious penthouse, Victoria sat in shadows, her smile cold. Her assistant hovered nervously. Should we respond immediately? Victoria swirled her wine, eyes glittering with malice. Not yet. Let him believe he's winning. At the charity gala, I'll destroy them both so thoroughly she wished she was never born. Her laughter rang out, sharp as broken glass. Asterisk, the charity gala at the Waldorf Astoria glittered like a dream. Chandeliers dripped light over the marble ballroom. White linen tables gleamed under crystal glasses, and more than 300 of New York's wealthiest filled the room. The banner read, "Charity Gala for Children's Future," but everyone knew what this night truly was. Victoria Sterling's theatre. Her grand attempt to reclaim her image and bury Amelia once and for all. Amelia didn't want to be there. She wanted to stay home, shield Ethan from cruel eyes, pretend the world couldn't touch them. But Jonathan insisted, "If we don't face them, Amelia, they'll never stop. Stand with me tonight. I swear I won't let anything happen." So Amelia agreed. She wore a simple sapphire gown, no jewels, no diamonds. Yet, as she entered the ballroom with Jonathan, heads turned. Whispers buzzed. That's her. The girl who trapped him. She doesn't look like a schemer. Still, the child. The child is the problem. Amelia's heart pounded. She gripped Jonathan's hand tightly. He leaned close, murmuring, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." When the evening reached its height, Victoria strode to the stage. Her crimson gown blazed beneath the spotlight, her beauty polished to perfection. She radiated power. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began sweetly, though her tone dripped venom, "tonight we honor children. But not all children are born of truth. Some are born from lies, staining the honor of great families. The crowd stirred. Heads turned again to Amelia. Victoria held up a folder. These are documents proving Amelia Carter deceived Jonathan Pierce. The boy she claims as his may not be his at all. The ballroom gasped. Flashbulbs erupted. Amelia's face drained of color. Her hands shook not. Jonathan shot to his feet, the scrape of his chair silencing the hall. Enough, Victoria. He stormed onto the stage, ripped the folder from her hands, and hurled it to the ground. He faced the crowd, his voice thundering. Believe lies if you want. But I know the truth. Ethan is my son. Amelia is the woman I love. No one insults them in my presence. Victoria laughed, sharp and cruel. We should believe you. You betrayed me, betrayed 2 families. Now you want to crown a waitress as Mrs. Pierce. Pathetic. Jonathan's eyes blazed. What's pathetic is that I once thought family honor mattered more than real love. That mistake cost me 7 years with my son. I will not repeat it. The crowd murmured some nodding. Others scoffing, but no one could deny Jonathan's conviction. From the floor, Amelia wept silently. For the first time, she saw Jonathan stand not as a CEO protecting his image, but as a man protecting his family. Victoria's mask cracked. Her voice rose in fury. You'll regret this, Jonathan. You'll lose everything. Jonathan descended the stage, taking Amelia's trembling hand. Maybe I will, he said firmly. But I won't lose her, and I won't lose our son. That night, the internet roared with videos of Jonathan's defense. The hashtag stand with Amelia surged. Thousands argued, some mocking, some cheering, but at last, the tide was split. In their small Brooklyn apartment, Amelia scrolled through comments. For the first time in years, she read words of support, strangers defending her. Hope flickered faintly in her heart. But she knew Victoria was not finished. Across the city, Victoria smashed a glass in her penthouse, shards glittering on the marble. Her assistant cowered. Should we strike back now? Victoria's lips curled into a wicked smile. Not yet. Let him think he's winning. At the next gala, I'll end them both for good. Her eyes gleamed with hatred as she lifted her glass of red wine. Amelia Carter will regret ever stepping into my world. Asterisk. After the charity gala, Victoria withdrew for a while. But Amelia had no illusion silence on her part always meant preparation for the next strike. Less than a week later, the press erupted with a fresh round of leaked documents. A set of photos began circulating. Amelia leaving a cafe with a man. The crops and angles were unflattering. The captions nastily hinted, Amelia's secret boyfriend, proof that Ethan might not be Jonathan Pierce's son. Amelia stared at the images in disbelief. The man pictured was nothing more than an old colleague, a man who had once met her to discuss a small loan for school fees. The camera's frame and the outlet's commentary twisted that ordinary meeting into an illicit affair in the public imagination. Ethan happened to see one of the pictures on a classmate's phone. He ran home with tearful eyes. Mum, they say I don't have a dad. They say I'm nobody. A nobody. His small voice cracked as he forced out the words. Amelia's heart went cold. She wrapped him up, trying to make his world a place of certainty again. No, baby. Don't ever believe them. You're loved. Your father is your father. But that night she sat on the sofa while Ethan slept. The headlines replaying in her head, the smell of cheap coffee in the photos like a slap to the face. She wondered how long she and her son could survive the public's cruelty. When Jonathan read the story, he was incandescent with rage. He stormed into the newsroom of the biggest paper that had run the item, forcing his way past reception into the editor's office. He slammed the phone on the editor's desk. "Take it down," he demanded, "now, or I will sue until nothing of you remains." The editor's expression was unreadable. "You're not the same Jonathan Pierce we knew," the man said coolly. "The board has already voted. You were removed as CEO last night." Jonathan froze. "What they did," the editor confirmed. "It's public. The board has acted to protect the company." The words hit like a physical blow. All the life Jonathan had built seemed to evaporate with the click of that sentence. Pierce Capital's ticker, he later learned, was reeling shares, dropping another 20% the following morning. Columnists wrote him off as reckless. Pundits traded in his humiliation. Amelia found him that evening in the dim kitchen of his small rental, shoulders rigid. She reached for him. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Do you regret choosing us over all of that?" Jonathan looked up, his eyes tired but steady. "No," he said. "If I had the choice again, I would choose you and Ethan every single time. But I will not let them destroy you for it. I will fight." Victoria didn't stop at slander. She hired investigators, photographers, people to trail Amelia and record ordinary life grocery runs, playground trips, even nights when she was visibly exhausted. The photos were published with scathing captions and insinuation. One evening, while Amelia and Ethan walked home, a dark sedan began to tail them, its headlights sweeping across the sidewalk like a threat. Amelia felt the blood drain from her face. She hurried Ethan into an alley and waited until the car vanished into the night. The experience left them both shaken for days. When Jonathan learned of the tailing, he rushed over and wrapped Amelia in his arms. "I'll never let them touch you again," he swore. "But how?" she asked between sobs. "You've lost everything for us. You have no power now. You have nothing like before." Jonathan tightened his grip. "I may have lost everything that meant to the world. I still have myself. I'll use whatever I have left, my name, my voice, whatever it takes to protect you." At the same time, the press began to dig into Jonathan's own past. A financial weekly unearthed old mistakes and Asian deal that had once bounced and cost the company millions. The tone now wasn't sympathetic. Widespread narrative turned him from a tragic father into a flawed leader, someone who'd mismanaged and been exposed. It was exactly the line of attack his enemies wanted. Paint him incompetent and they could justify their takeover, in spite of the attacks, in the quiet of their apartment. Something small and human kept appearing. A crumpled drawing from Ethan. He had scribbled a family 3 stick figures holding hands, and beneath it wrote, with a child's misspelled letters, "Family." Jonathan folded that little page into his wallet and carried it like a talisman. For all the noise outside, this was why he fought. But worse was on the horizon. Whispers reached Jonathan's ear that Victoria intended to fabricate DNA evidence, an expert at a private lab paid to reverse the results. If she succeeded, it would not only destroy whatever public goodwill Jonathan had, but would permanently brand the child as something less. He knew the time for a defensive posture had passed. This was no longer about damage control. It was a matter of truth and the future of a 6-year-old Part 3. Segment 2. Jonathan understood Victoria better than most. When she struck, she planned several moves in advance. If she intended to manufacture DNA results, she had to have compromised a laboratory or a technician. Such fraud would seem authoritative hard to overturn. He needed allies and facts. He sought out Daniel, the young reporter who had already shown rare scruples. They met in a cramped cafe in Brooklyn. The place itself an emblem of a life Jonathan was trying to reclaim, ill, unpolished. And human, Victoria is going to release counterfeit DNA, Jonathan said without preamble. He slumped into the chair across from Daniel, eyes intense. I need you to trace the money, find who was paid to switch results. If we can expose that chain, we can destroy her credibility. Daniel folded his hands together, the expression of a man who'd spent his 20s balancing fear and ethics. You know what that does to my career. Sterling has influence over legal beats and newsrooms. If I go public, and I'm wrong if I can't prove the payments, my whole life's work disappears. Jonathan leaned forward. You're safe with me. I'll protect your sources. You'll have legal backing. But more than that, if we let her win, a child will be labeled with a lie for life. Is that the world you want to be part of? Daniel's jaw worked. He met Jonathan's eyes for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll look. But if this blows up, protect the people who helped me. Do it, Jonathan said, back in the Pierce mansion. The family machinery tightened the screws. Eleanor summoned Jonathan to another meeting, this time with men whose names were synonymous with the company's control. The message was blunt and brutal. Sign this, Eleanor said, placing a document in front of him like a plate. Formally renounce any claims to the boy. Renounce the right to the inheritance. If you do, we'll restore you to a place where you can live a respectable life. Smaller, yes, but comfortable. Jonathan touched the paper like it burned. You want me to disown my own son? He asked. Eleanor's face was the image of cold rationality. We will save the name. You will be spared scandal. It is logic, Jonathan, not cruelty. He scoffed. Logic or cowardice? A cousin spat anger into the room. You'll throw away everything for a woman and a child. You embarrassed us all. Jonathan's response was quiet but fierce. You give me the choice to be a father or to be your obedient heir. One choose being a father. The family erupted. His uncle accused him of betrayal. The terms were laid bare. Lose the name, lose the shares, be cut off entirely. Jonathan left with his shoulders straight, his conscience clear. He had chosen his family. Not long after, Victoria staged a press event of her own. Cameras packed the room as she stepped up and declared she possessed DNA proof that Ethan was not Jonathan's child. The headline stories appeared instantaneously, false heir, and the internet began to spin. Jonathan refused to be cowed. He barged onto that stage. Those are fake, he announced. If you need evidence, I will submit to an independent, court-ordered DNA test in front of neutral third parties. Let it be done. The crowd fell silent. Victoria sneered. So will you perform an impromptu truth show? You want public proof? Fine, but it will not change the facts. Meanwhile, Daniel working nights returned to Jonathan with a folder. I found the payments, he said. The documents showed money flows from a shell account to a private lab. Someone bought a result. The revelation was a lever. It could flip the court of public opinion, but Victoria had prepared contingencies. That night, someone broke into Amelia's small apartment. Furniture was scattered. drawers pried open. It looked like a forced search. No one had been there when the intruders struck. But a message was left taped to the wall in red paint. Behave or you'll pay with blood. Jonathan felt a cold, animal rage. The war had left the realm of headlines and civil suits. Intimidation had turned physical. He filed a police report, but he also told Amelia he would respond with action, not just legalism. They relocated temporarily to a safer unit he rented in secrecy. He had guards posted and surveillance set up. But he knew safety measures were only a bandage if you didn't uproot the disease. That was why the money trail Daniel had uncovered had to be made public. If people saw the paper trail, Victoria would be exposed as a fraudster with the means to corrupt everything: journalism, science, and justice. The warning message rattled Jonathan to his core, but instead of retreating, it only steeled his resolve. He understood now this was no longer about gossip columns or family inheritance. This was about survival. For Amelia, the strain was nearly unbearable. She tried to shield Ethan from the chaos, keeping his routines: normal school drop-offs, bedtime stories, pancakes on Saturday mornings, but the shadow of threat hung over everything. She'd flinch at the sound of footsteps behind her, her heart racing every time a strange car slowed near their block. Jonathan refused to let her carry that burden alone. He put together a small circle of allies: Daniel, the journalist; Kelly, Amelia's loyal friend; and a few bodyguards he could still trust. Together they devised a plan not just to defend, but to strike. Victoria had relied for too long on whispers, falsified evidence, and intimidation. If Jonathan wanted to end it, he needed to expose her fully, in a way the public could not ignore. Daniel's investigations continued to uncover more Threads bank transfers routed through offshore accounts, evidence of paid harassment squads, even documents suggesting Victoria had blackmailed members of the Pierce board. It was a network of corruption too wide to hide forever, but Jonathan knew exposing her would come with risk. "If we do this," he told Amelia one night, sitting with her in the dimly lit kitchen, "Victoria won't just fight back in the press. She'll come after us physically. We need to be ready." Amelia reached across the table, taking his hand. "I don't care what she does to me," she whispered. "But Ethan, he's just a boy. He deserves safety." Jonathan's grip tightened. "That's why I won't stop." For him, Victoria, meanwhile, was unraveling. Her once flawless composure was cracking, the pressure of exposure gnawing at her carefully curated empire. In her penthouse, she paced back and forth, wineglass forgotten on the counter. Her assistant dared to speak. "Maybe it's time to let go, Victoria. The tide has turned." Victoria whirled, eyes blazing. "Let go? After everything I've built? After everything I've sacrificed? No. If Jonathan thinks he can humiliate me, if Amelia thinks she can steal my place, then they both will learn what it means to cross Victoria Sterling." Her threats were no longer veiled. She called Eleanor Pierce directly, demanding they join forces again. Eleanor's patience was thin, but her hatred of Amelia kept her aligned. Together, they plotted a final act that would ruin Jonathan once and for all. The plan was brutal: destroy his credibility in the one arena he still had left public trust. They would leak doctored evidence suggesting Jonathan had embezzled from his own company before the board ousted him. With his reputation gone, no one would care what truth he shouted about Amelia or Ethan. But they underestimated Jonathan's determination. He had anticipated this move. He already had Daniel preparing a counteroffensive, a public dossier exposing Victoria's corruption in painstaking detail, complete with verifiable bank records and testimony. The stage was set for the final confrontation. That confrontation came at an annual gala attended by the city's political elite. This event was no ordinary gathering. It was a stage larger than any courtroom, larger than any tabloid headline. The mayor was in attendance, senators, CEOs, celebrities. Cameras streamed the event live across networks. Jonathan knew it was risky to bring Amelia, but she insisted. "If this is the night we clear the truth," she told him, "then I want to stand by you, not hidden away, not ashamed, beside you." So they walked into the ballroom together. Amelia in an elegant silver gown, Jonathan in a tailored tuxedo. Whispers spread instantly. All eyes followed them as they crossed the marble floor. Victoria was waiting. She ascended the stage like a queen reclaiming her throne. The lights glowed, the cameras pointed, and her voice rang sharp as she began her speech. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we gather for charity," she said with a smile as polished as glass. "But it would be dishonest not to address the rot that festers beneath the surface of our society. Men who betray their families, women who prey on wealth, children born of deception." The insinuations were unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the room. Amelia stiffened, her hands trembling. Jonathan placed his hand gently over hers. Then Victoria unveiled what she thought was her triumph. Projected on the enormous screen behind her appeared documents of supposed embezzlement. Numbers twisted and forged to suggest Jonathan had siphoned millions from Pierce Capital. "This," she declared, "is the man some call noble. This is the father who claims truth on his side." The audience murmured with shock. Reporters scrambled to take photos. Jonathan stood, his heart pounding, but his voice steady. "Lies," he said. "All of it. And I can prove it," he signaled. Daniel stepped forward, carrying a folder. Within it were the real documents, the payment trails, the forged lab records, the evidence of intimidation. Projected now on the screen were screenshots of Victoria's secret accounts, signed testimonies from insiders, and messages that revealed her orchestration of every falsehood. The room exploded in chaos. Reporters shouted, cameras flashed. Jonathan's voice thundered above the noise. "This is the truth. This is the woman who bought lies and sold them as fact. This is the woman who tried to destroy a mother and a child to protect her own pride. Look at the evidence. Judge for yourselves." Amelia felt tears slip down her cheeks. For so long she had been powerless, voiceless, attacked from every angle. Now the tide was shifting before her eyes. Victoria's face twisted with fury. "Lies, forgeries," she screamed, but the audience wasn't convinced. Too much evidence, too many details matched. The gala descended into pandemonium. Some guests left, unwilling to be associated. Reporters swarmed, but Jonathan and Amelia stood their ground, united. The fallout was immediate. By morning, every major network carried the story. Sterling exposed, Pierce Air vindicated, public opinion whiplashed in a matter of hours. Where Amelia had once been painted a schemer, now she was seen as a survivor, a mother who had endured relentless attacks. Victoria, meanwhile, faced investigations. Her accounts were frozen, her reputation shredded. Eleanor, too, found herself disgraced. Board members turned their backs on her, unwilling to be dragged down with a woman whose schemes had come to light. But for Jonathan and Amelia, the end of the war was not simple. Though the public now sided with them, the scars remained. Amelia still flinched when a camera flash went off. Ethan still had nightmares of the car that had once followed them, and Jonathan still carried the weight of years lost to fear and betrayal. One night, sitting together on the balcony of the modest apartment, Amelia spoke quietly. "Even if the world believes us now, how do we heal from all this?" Jonathan took her hand, gazing out at the city lights, not with grand speeches, not with headlines, but day by day, step by step. "With you, with Ethan, we'll build something stronger than they can ever destroy." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "That's all I want." For the first time in weeks, they both allowed themselves to exhale. Yet closure was not immediate. Victoria made one last desperate move. Cornered and ruined, she appeared on a talk show, trying to reclaim sympathy by painting herself as the true victim. But the host pressed her, live on air, with the evidence Daniel had uncovered. Her excuses collapsed, her anger boiled over, and the audience turned cold. It was the final nail in the coffin. Jonathan watched the broadcast, then turned off the television. "It's over," he said simply. Amelia nodded. But deep down, she knew healing wasn't about Victoria's downfall. It was about reclaiming the life stolen from them. Weeks later, the three of them walked together in Central Park. The air was crisp, the trees gilded with autumn leaves. For the first time, no photographers chased them, no whispers followed. Just families, couples, children playing. Ethan raced ahead, laughing, chasing pigeons across the grass. Amelia watched him, her chest tightening with something she hadn't felt in years' peace. Jonathan slipped his arm around her shoulders. "Do you ever think about what might have been? If I'd chosen differently all those years ago?" Amelia was quiet for a moment. Then she answered, "I used to, but not anymore. Because if things had been different, Ethan wouldn't be here, and he's worth every scar, every battle." Jonathan's throat tightened. He pulled her close. "Then let's stop looking back. Let's build forward, just us. Our family." They stood there, watching their son, the noise of the city muted for once. For the first time in a long time, the future felt possible again, and those scars would linger, though the world would always remember the scandal. Amelia knew one thing with absolute certainty. No matter what storms lay ahead, she and Jonathan would face them together, because love tested by betrayal, hammered by fire, and forged in truth had survived. And it was stronger than anything Victoria Sterling or Eleanor Pierce had ever wielded.